You look so good. You're like you're going to court.
You're not going to make fun of my driving like you usually do,
I'm going to make fun of everything you do this entire week. I'm so dang excited you're here. Get your ass in the car now and drive.
All right.
Man, I'm so excited that my good friend Murray Newman is coming to work with us on this next case. I've known him forever. He's a legal super genius and one of the smartest people that I know.
Better know, better know this. Every step and every breath.
So I met you during the Brian Gonzalez trial because you were an intern, so you weren't even out of law school yet.
No, I was between my first and second year of law school. 1997. Never been married before. Still had some hair.
You've known me longer than all your marriages added up.
Oh, yeah, easily.
I like that. I'm excited, too, not just because it's you and we know each other so well. All these years you've been putting the case together, too, behind the scenes for the probable cause for the prosecutor. And people don't know, but every day you and I sit and talk about everything and figure out what we have and where we need to go. So the strategizing, the true strategizing, has been you and me for 10 years.
All right.
I've been working on Cold Justice since the first season as a legal consultant off camera. Kelly and I worked at the district attorney's office, so we both have the legal experience of being a prosecutor, but unlike Kelly, I've got the experience of being a criminal defense attorney as well. As a defense attorney, I have a slightly different outlook on how circumstantial evidence can be used in trying to solve a case. Hopefully we can help Lake Station Police figure out who murdered Frank Halcars and prove it.
What'd you think when you first read it?
The overwhelming thing for me was just how sad it is that this is an 89-year-old man who is a World War II veteran, our country's national treasures, and he's robbed and beaten and just left in such an undignified manner. It's heartbreaking.
Frank was a two-time widower and a World War II veteran known for having a heart of gold. My grandfather fought in World War II, so I know firsthand why they called them the greatest generation. When you look at what an honorable man that Frank was, it's absolutely horrendous to realize how his life ended in such a cowardly and senseless way.
I was very close with my grandfather. He was my biggest hero. I'd lose my mind if anybody had ever treated my grandfather like that.
This is the kind of case you fight the hardest for, don't you think?
Absolutely. How's my driving so far?
You're doing fine, honey.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Detective Peake, nice to meet you.
I'm Kelly, nice to meet you.
Hi, Murray Newman, nice to meet you.
Captain Perryman. Assistant Chief Taylor, how are you?
Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Jim Richardson?
The boss, nice to meet you. Well, we're excited to be here. So back in 2007, what do y'all remember about this case?
Ooh, seeing the body.
Oh, you saw him?
Yes. It's kind of rough sometimes when you walk in and see an elderly gentleman like that you know is a veteran, so.
And I think they're national treasures, and they definitely don't deserve to end up the way he did.
So y'all are super motivated on this one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Can you say why it hasn't been cleared yet?
We were in Gary at the time, and we were dealing with about 136 homicides that year.
Okay.
You know, you have one detective assigned to the case, and you have a certain amount of days to work the case, and then you get more work piled on, and when you hit that end, that's it, you know?
You know, that's one reason the show works, because we're forcing you to give us these two guys for 7 working days, which is a luxury you never really have on your cases.
Right.
So we get it. We hear it everywhere. So thank you for letting us be here.
Not a problem.
We're excited.
We appreciate it.
Lead the way.
Yep.
We met back in '06.
We were forced to ride 2-man unit for a long time in Gary. So it was like being married for 10 years, give or take.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we enjoy working these type of cases because you kind of hope they don't happen, but unfortunately when it does, we really enjoy that type of work.
Okay, so this is our picture of Frank Halcars Sr. And he was how old?
89. I believe he was born in East Chicago, which isn't far from here. He's a World War II veteran. Talking with people from the neighborhood, he's a great guy. He visited the VFW from time to time, and he just kind of kept to himself.
Frank Halcars grew up around Chicago. He was a Boy Scout. He joined the Army from 1941 to 1945. He was married twice, and he was also widowed twice. His second wife passed away in 2005. At the time of the murder, Frank was living alone, but he was still very close with his large blended family. In fact, the last person he talked to was his step-granddaughter on October the 26th, 2007. So we know what day Frank was found, Halloween 2007.
Mm-hmm.
But we think the murder happened on Friday the 26th.
Yes.
So he's out there 5 days.
Right. On October 31st, a friend found Frank face down, and he had a large hole in the back of his head, probably about 2 or 3 inches. But he also had a laceration on his forehead, so that could have been from him falling once he was struck.
Did he have any of this from defending himself at all?
Not that I recall.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
think so.
okay.
He was found in the doorway.
It was like an enclosed front porch.
Right. His rear pocket was pulled out, so
Which tells you?
they took his wallet.
Okay. What was the working theory back then as far as what the weapon could have been?
Well, they did recover a sledgehammer, and detectives believe that it was involved. It was located on the railroad tracks just behind the house.
The hammer was found very close to the crime scene, and when you look at it compared to the wounds on Frank's head, we have a pretty good idea that that was probably the murder weapon. And it looks like he was unloading groceries when he was attacked. But did his killer follow him inside, or was he already inside lying in wait?
Okay. Let's put up here unknown suspects. What first makes this pop up?
The report from his buddies.
And the buddies or guys he hangs out with where? VFW?
It's a VFW, yeah.
And Frank tells the 2 guys at the VFW what?
He's been having trouble with neighborhood kids that were stealing from him.
It's kind of the stuff that, I mean, like kids would do, right? This doesn't look like a real professional kind of thing.
Right.
They were showing up and messing with his residence. So, you know, that was always the talk. Hey, these children could have been involved in it.
We don't know the extent of the trouble Frank was having with the local kids. But because he was 89 years old, he was a pretty easy target for anybody who wanted to take advantage of him. But they weren't the only ones he was having trouble with. Let's talk about Brandon Scroggin, Frank's step-grandson from his second marriage. When did he get all these tattoos?
I know he got the face tattoos the day of and thereafter.
I'm gonna put them both up, okay? And in 2007, Brandon's how old?
23.
23.
He stayed in a camper in the back of his residence.
I got the feeling that he was still trying to be kind to Brandon because his wife would have wanted it that way.
Yeah, you know, and Frank was a great guy. He's helping out this kid.
Any prior convictions or arrests?
He has a jacket that's pretty huge.
Auto theft warrants from 05, burglary 2005.
And we know he uses coke?
Correct. August 4th, Frank reports his gun and his welder missing. And at that time, he mentioned Brandon Scroggins living in the trailer on the property.
2 months before our murder.
And there was issues before about him stealing Frank's debit card.
Frank had accused Brandon of stealing his debit cards in the past, and we know that one of Frank's credit cards was used after his death. But was Brandon the one using that? We don't know, but those transactions could be the huge piece of this puzzle.
I found heaven when I looked in your eyes, like a peaceful sort of kryptonite.
We're gonna go over to the VFW.
That's the place he hung out,
Yes.
Frank?
In Lake Station here, everybody kind of knows everybody. So typically that's where the hangout is.
Frank Halcars used to visit the VFW hall and hang out with his friends, so we're headed there today to talk to his step-granddaughter, Devin. She also happens to be the cousin of our suspect, Brandon. She was only 16 at the time, but she was the last known person to talk to Frank. Hello,
Hi,
you're Devin.
I'm Devin.
I'm
Hi.
Kelly, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Hi, Detective Peak.
Hi, nice to
Hi,
meet you.
nice to meet you. Can you talk to us about Frank? What kind of person he was?
My real grandpa passed away when I was like 3, and I don't remember him at all. And then he came along, and he was just, you know, my grandpa. He was just the only grandpa I ever had. I was trying not to cry this whole time.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's sad enough that he was 89,
Yeah,
and then we hear nothing but good things about him, right?
he was such a great guy. They had such a cute, like, relationship. You know, finding love so old. He used to always bother my grandma all the time. Like, they just had this little, like, thing going on. My grandma would act like she was annoyed, but, like, you know, he'd always tease her, and she'd always be like, God damn it, Frank. And he was always working in the yard. He had, like, a big pond back there. I used to go fishing with them all the time, camping. Frank was a veteran of World War II. He didn't say much about it, but he was really proud. He was a sweet, sweet, funny man. He always was playing jokes and being a trickster, even when I was younger with my grandma, and he was just always helpful and patient with me.
Remember the last time that you had any contact with Frank?
My mom and my sister asked me to call him to see if he was still coming to my nephew's birthday party.
Okay.
He said, yeah, I'm coming. He just got back from the store or something. And then he never showed up.
Anything in the telephone conversation you had with Frank about troubles at his house or troubles in his life?
No,
Anything about Brandon?
no. And I don't feel like he would say anything to me about those
Probably
things.
not. Do you know anything about the relationship Brandon had with Frank during those 3 years after your grandma passed away?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of my family really associated with Brandon that much. Like, I wasn't allowed to be around him.
Even back then?
Yeah, he was troubled. Yeah. He was always very mean and, like, was getting into, like, the drugs.
Devin doesn't know much about any specific issues going on between Frank and her cousin Brandon, but she was warned herself about Brandon a long time ago, and we need to get to the bottom of that.
He had no fear, and he didn't care about consequences.
What's your understanding of what's still standing on Frank's property today for us to go look at?
Basically, the cinder blocks that held his house up. The rest of it's gone, which is unfortunate.
Hopefully we can talk about the area where the porch is, where everything happened, and then talk about exactly how it went down.
We always want to know exactly how it happened, and sometimes we may not know the fine details, but we know enough. How he swung the hammer, that doesn't necessarily mean we can't figure out who swung the hammer.
16 years ago, 89-year-old Frank Halcars was brutally murdered in his own home. We want to get a lay of the land and try to recreate his killer's actions. This is the original driveway, right?
Right. Correct. And the trailer would have been in the grass at the very end over there.
This is the one we think Brandon stayed in, huh?
Yes.
And what's roped off here?
This would be a representation of the porch. This corner is actually an original corner where the house was.
So he would have, his feet would have been here, right? And
Correct.
his head basically right there.
Yeah.
So then, Murray, you be Frank,
You want me
and Pete, you be Sledgehammer Man.
Okay.
So y'all are thinking it went down how?
I think he's coming out from inside the main house because we know that he's got at least one more load of groceries in his vehicle. I think he set down one load and he is coming back out. And I think he gets about this far before he gets that first strike to the back of the left side of his head.
Okay, so where do you think the sledgehammer suspect comes from?
I think he followed him out the door.
I think he came right behind him.
Could they have been having an argument and he said, you know what, enough of this, I'm leaving and you need to too, and walked out ahead of him? Yes. Or he could have walked in and seen him with a hammer and was like, let me get out of here. Or he could have been hiding. You're never gonna know.
Okay.
Frank could have been struck after a confrontation. But we believe that some neighborhood kids, as well as Frank's step-grandson Brandon, had been stealing from him. Maybe he came home in the middle of a burglary, and to avoid being caught, the burglar grabbed a nearby sledgehammer.
So I believe he strikes him here, and then he falls onto his left side.
The fall makes the dentures fall out.
Correct. I think he comes this way. I believe he hits here.
When Pete did that blow to Murray's little head, that's horrible. That's way worse than pulling the trigger on a gun. It was bad.
So then he would remove the wallet and then exit out this way.
When the police arrive, his wallet is not there.
And his pocket's pulled out too. And then what do we know happens out here?
The sledgehammer was located right off the railroad tracks. You have the residence, he's going this way. He's not going back out the driveway.
We think this happened around what time on Friday?
Late
Around 5?
Late afternoon.
Yeah,
3 to 5?
Yeah.
And the first credit card use is at what time?
10-ish, in the 10 o'clock hour.
Well, let's talk about Brandon. If he went over there just to get money and Frank busts him, Frank's going to say, what are you doing here? And there's no reason to kill him.
No.
Or he goes in there in the beginning in the first place when Frank's not even home yet waiting to get him, because that's his plan from the very beginning.
I mean, don't underestimate how mad it might be that he got the cops called on him from before. This was absolutely an ambush murder. This was just such a cheap shot, brutal, cruel attack. It's heartbreaking that you have that in you to do to a 89-year-old war veteran laying on the ground. It's unspeakable.
Well, that was very helpful. Thank you. Okay, John Lederhold. He says he's the stepson of the victim. As hot-headed as Brandon can be, there's no telling what he might have told him over the years, too.
Right.
It's time we start talking to everyone who can tell us about Frank and any strained relationship he might have had with his step-grandson, Brandon. Was it so bad that it could have led to murder? And why would he kill the man who was helping him more than anyone and giving him a place to live?
I raised Brandon from 5 years old till he was 18. His mom died.
So what about his dad?
Drank a lot.
So that's why it kind of fell on you.
Yeah.
What do you know about Frank and Brandon's relationship?
I know Brandon got money off him a couple times, and I talked to Frank once before. I said, don't give him no more money, Frank. Don't give him no more money. He's just going to go drink it up or get coke or whatever he wants to do with it. What, 2 months later or 3 months later, that's when they found him dead over there, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Talk to me about Brandon's relationship with Frank.
He was staying with somebody and couldn't anymore, and was shocked when my mom said, Frank's letting Brandon stay in his trailer. And I was like, really? I'm like, why would Grandpa do that? You know, because I know I didn't trust Brandon. You know, everybody knew he would steal from you as quick as he can. I know that he had screaming matches with my grandpa. And I think there was an instance when my grandpa was finally like, you have to leave. Like, you can't stay in the camper. You can't.
Do you remember when that was?
I don't. I really don't. I know it was
let's
within a month of him.
Okay.
I would say definitely around 4 weeks of him not being here with us anymore.
Okay.
If Frank was trying to kick Brandon out, then maybe Brandon felt like he had nothing to lose by trying to steal from him one more time.
Brandon's one of the people, I honestly don't think he has ever felt empathy in his life. He doesn't feel for other people.
Brandon was, when he wasn't in jail, he was always around. His mom ended up committing suicide when he was a couple years old, and he was in the house with her.
That's why.
On Mother's Day. So. But when he started, I think, his drug addiction, he just wasn't right. I remember months before Frank was killed, he had let Brandon stay in the camper on his property, and Brandon stole his gun, his checkbook, and Frank said enough finally.
So Frank told you that directly, that he told Brandon to leave and that was enough?
Yes. I remember him telling me, you know, I'm a little scared of Brandon. He said, if he gets on, you know, with the drugs and that, he said, because I'm 80-something years old and I couldn't fight back if, you know, he wanted to do something. And that stuck in my head.
All right, you take care.
You too.
Frank told her he was scared of Brandon. And in August, he kicked him out and told him not to come back. So there's a possible personal and financial motive here.
Yeah.
We've been hearing a lot that Brandon Scroggins could be the person who killed and robbed Frank, but we need to look into these rumors and things that we're hearing about maybe some local boys possibly being involved in stealing from Frank. And we need evidence that they were involved, or if not, we need to eliminate them. Hello, guys.
Hello, how you doing?
How are you, sir? My name's Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to Hi, Kelly. Andy.
Nice to meet you. Doc and Andrew are some of Frank's old American Legion buddies. They also happen to be the two witnesses who first told the police department about maybe these neighborhood boys being involved in what happened to Frank.
Are you the prosecutor?
Used to be, yes, sir. My little town is called Blessing, Texas, and we have a Legion there. And I grew up cleaning the toilets, mopping the floor, washing dishes, and calling bingo and bartending there.
And now look what you're
How about that, right? And when I go home now, I still go to the Legion every time we go hang out.
God bless you.
Well, we're excited to talk to you all about what happened to Frank.
Frank was a nice fellow.
Yeah, Frank was one hell of a guy.
He really had a nice heart.
I mean, that guy was just as gentle as a lamb, man. He really was.
Yeah, he was just the type of guy you'd like to be with.
I remember teasing him because his army, he said, you know what that stands for? And he says, what? I said, ain't ready to be a Marine yet. And he started laughing his ass off. It shocked me when I heard about it. I said, no, it can't be my Frank, you know, because we love him so much. He really was great. But I'd like to see this thing have closure, I'll tell you. For him, for the family, and for him.
You said you're a young kid living in the trailer in front of his house. He said, just putting them up. I said, oh, that's awful nice of you to do that.
Yeah.
He said, well, you got to help people out.
Did Frank ever mention that anything was going wrong in his relationship with Brandon?
Well, he said he was a problem child, as last I remember him telling me.
Yeah.
And he was hoping that he'd be leaving.
He told you that, Frank did.
Yeah.
This is a supplement 1 page in the report where an officer wrote down.
Andrew Kent advised that Frank told them he had been having trouble with some neighborhood kids that were stealing from him. I recall that now, yeah.
Do you remember any more detail about what he said the problems were with them?
No, I don't.
I mean, Frank didn't go around flashing money, right?
Oh, hell no.
The kind of guy that neighborhood kids would think obviously has money hidden in his house, anything like that?
I never picked up any of that.
Frank's friends don't seem to really know too much more about these kids being involved or if there's even anything more to it. And that's helpful for the case. It is the kind of thing, though, that a defense lawyer wants to play with to try and turn into reasonable doubt or to try and throw mud on your case. So that's why we have to look into it and do whatever we can to try and clear it up and clear it out. All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
We're trying everything
Bye,
we
Kelly.
can. So all this credit card transaction stuff, pull out your notes so we can make it nice and accurate. We know that Frank's credit card was used shortly after his murder, so now it's time to take a deep dive into the details of all those credit card transactions. So we think Frank goes to the store and maybe Menards on Friday, October 26th. Right now we're thinking that's also the day he's murdered.
Based on the grocery receipt that was found at the crime scene, police believe that Frank was killed shortly after 2 p.m. on the 26th.
What's the next thing you care about on Friday the 26th?
Credit card use at Waterfront Lounge at 10:34
That's
p.m.
the first one? How much does he use this time?
50 on the nose.
The first charge on Frank's stolen credit card was at 10:34 p.m. at a local bar. It was then used 8 more times at 2 different bars and a gas station.
Okay, so after 2:49 in the morning, on Saturday the 27th, nothing happens until the night of Saturday the 27th?
We had a 9:57 at Little Saver food store and then 11:15 back at Waterfront.
There's a couple more charges on the 27th at Food Mart and then back at the bar. I'm wondering if the plan was to use Frank's card as much as possible until the body was discovered.
Okay, so now we're rolling into Monday, October 29th.
It's when he gets ambitious and hits Western Union.
And I'm showing the Western Union was for $227 and $284. So now he's got $500 cash walking around money.
By day 4, he's getting bold. He used a computer to steal hundreds via Western Union. And then we have 3 more gas stations and 6 more charges at the bar.
Why is he bothering to do a card for these little bitty amounts this close together?
He probably looks shifty and they won't let him open a tab. So he's probably having to make like a transaction every time he goes to the bar.
So we got last activity, 1:07 in the morning. The morning of Halloween, Frank's body ends up being found.
Now remember, he gets picked up
at 1 a.m. at Ruthie's on November 1st.
He doesn't have it on him at that time.
Brandon was located by police on November 1st, and he tells them that he'd been shacking up all weekend with a woman he'd met at a bar. He was never charged with credit card fraud, but if we can further prove that he used that stolen card, that'd be fantastic evidence to use to prove that he killed Frank.
I already did reach out to the bank, and I was told they only keep records for 7 years.
Okay, so that means it's not admissible unless somebody can testify to it. Who's still in business? What about those joints, beer joints? They're not either.
Nope.
Dang it. To be admissible in court, every piece of evidence has to have a witness to testify to its authenticity. The easy way to make all this admissible would have been back then to have the paperwork from the credit card transactions. If you didn't have that, you could try to find the witnesses from the bars or from the gas stations who might still be working there. But because it's been so long ago, finding old records and employees is pretty close to impossible. We may think Brandon used Frank's cards, but right now we can't prove it. How do we get that in?
We prove it by going through the woman he was with.
If you can use her to legitimize the transactions, if you're the prosecutor and you're in court, you argue it goes to the weight of the evidence.
We need to find this woman and hope that she saw Brandon use this card.
All right, which one is this? Is this the one he firebombed her car?
Yeah. While we're busy trying to track down Brandon Scroggins' alibi witness, there's another girlfriend from his past that we think is very important that we need to talk to.
How you doing? I'm Murray Newman.
She dated Brandon Scroggins a couple of years after Frank Halcars' murder, and we're wondering what, if anything, he might have told her about his grandfather's death.
I dated him in, it was really late 2011, and then by March, he turned psychotic. He is very aggressive, very dominating, very abusive. He kept calling me off the phone, turned off my phone, wake up the next day, my car he set on fire. And then after that, it was I have to leave my house because he threatened to set my trailer on fire. Left my house, went to a shelter, lost my kid because of him. And then I get out the shelter a month later and my house burns down to the ground 2 weeks later.
Did he ever talk to you at all about Frank?
No. Said I don't know anything other than whenever I first got with him, he made me Google his name as well on the internet, and he made me read the article to where he was the main suspect and was like, I want you to hear this from me before you ever hear it from somebody else. But he never elaborated on it or said that he did or didn't. You know what I mean? He never admitted to me as to anything, but he's obviously set stuff on fire. He'd say that he's killed others and that he would do the same to me.
What exactly did he say?
He would just say that he would use the number 5, especially like every time, say that he killed 5 people and then he'll kill me as well.
Wow.
This guy is out of control. He's clearly, based on what she has told us, a very, very scary person.
He would talk about going to the city and literally running up behind somebody and hitting them in the back of the head and then reaching in their pockets and taking whatever he could get, whether they were dead or alive.
He apparently liked to brag. He claimed multiple murders. It sounds a lot like what happened to Frank.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, thank you guys.
And I think all these pieces are just fitting together in a very commonsensical way that makes a beautiful case for a prosecutor.
Yeesh.
Bless her heart.
It's been through a lot of shit. That's psychopath, that's for sure. She was definitely visibly shaken.
Still scared 10 years later.
Oh, yeah. Also, something very interesting was Brandon told her that he would sneak up behind people and hit them in the head with an object. And then when they went down, he would take whatever they had in their pockets and leave, whether they were dead or alive.
Oh, that's nice. We never had that before.
No.
Oh, that's beautiful.
She was very clear on that.
All right, let's call it a day. A good day. A good day.
Full responsibility.
Hello.
I'm trying to...
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll take a Miller Lite.
Miller Lite?
Yes. Y'all have one of these at home?
Yeah.
BFW?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. I got so many stories about the Legion of Blessing. It's crazy.
It's really part of your heritage growing up.
Your grandpa was in World War II and your dad was in Vietnam?
Yeah. I can't help but think of my grandfather every time Frank is brought up.
What are you thinking about what we're looking like?
You know, I think it's still very key that we talk to
The woman that he was with,
and keep our fingers crossed that her life has been on a better path than what Brandon's has been, and that she's willing to help us out, because I think she's extremely key to it.
If we can find her.
We can find her.
as a defense attorney, I'm always thinking about how a case is going to unfold in the courtroom. And even if we can find Brandon's weekend fling, if she's a drug addict or a criminal, it opens the door to the defense team to challenge her credibility and testimony.
If we lose the credit card piece of the case, what do we have?
Yeah.
It's a whole different case.
It's pretty much an all or nothing proposition.
We really need her to be knowledgeable and credible.
I'm glad you guys are working on this full case.
We are, and we're hoping to have some luck. And we want to make your community proud. Lake Station Police Department look good because they're trying really hard to solve it. Yep. And the victims are World War II veterans. Frank was one of y'all.
Thank you all for what you're doing, too.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So we're on our way to see arguably the most important witness to this case.
And if anybody that we've talked to might have new information that wasn't disclosed at the time, this would be the person.
Today is a big day. Perryman and Murray just got a new lead on hopefully being able to find Brandon Scroggins' alibi witness. And Peake is on his way to a correctional facility where Brandon is incarcerated for crimes committed against his ex-girlfriend. To make this case, we need one of them to somehow confirm that Brandon was the person who used Frank's stolen credit cards.
Obviously, what we're talking about is there was a homicide, right? So when did you meet him relative to when that happened?
I was at, might have been the tap house back then. I remember this particular person coming in like in a wet hoodie. His name was Brandon. And he was real generous. He was buying everybody drinks. And I ended up bringing him into my home and sleeping with him. And he didn't stay here that often. I don't even remember. It was very, very short. It was more of like a fling. And I do remember he had to use my computer at one point when he was here. And he had a charge card. The name was the same as the person that was in the paper. When it come up that this man was murdered, it flipped me the out. Because he was using his charge card. The coincidence of that was slim.
This witness was fantastic. She remembers Brandon using Frank's card. She confirmed a lot of things that we already knew. Most importantly, that a computer was used on October 29th to transfer Frank's money via Western Union. And this was before his body was found.
I get nauseous thinking about that I spent time with somebody that could have done that.
That witness is going to be just a prosecutor's dream.
How you doing, Brandon? Detective Peak with the Lake Station Police Department. I'm gonna set this up so I can have my notes and things. I appreciate you speaking to me today.
It's important to me to have Brandon feel comfortable with me, to get him to speak with me. My plan is to let Brandon know that I don't have much information from the previous detectives and that I'm just trying to gather information. You know, it's always good when you can kind of play on his side in the beginning, kind of warm him up.
What I'm looking into is your grandfather. Can you tell me what your relationship was with him?
I was staying there on and off.
Yeah?
Came from back.
So you were still living there when he passed away? Okay. Do you remember hearing about how Frank was killed?
Yeah, somebody killed him with a sledgehammer. I don't even know who even told me. I think it was in the paper. I seen it in the paper this morning.
So you seen it in the newspaper? Okay.
At that time I was bar hopping at different bars, and then I ended up with a different chick. My ex one night, another girl I was with her like 3 days when all that happened. I was with her. The night that happened, I was at her house.
Does it bother you that we haven't found out who killed Frank?
Yeah, because it seems like every time I turn around, somebody wants to haunt me, or this is bothering me from my past. It don't matter if I'm going to get a job, or a girlfriend I'm with, or anything I'm with, it's bothering me. It affects me every time now. Everybody thinks I'm the one who did this. I did this, I did this, I did this.
Do you know why that everybody was just kind of blaming you for it?
I was using his credit cards.
You said you were using his credit cards? Okay. Talk to me about that.
His credit cards. And the utility closet, you got 10, 15 of them in there, and then ones that sent in the mail. They're just sitting in there. Nothing. So if I didn't get to affect him, then the credit card company's going to put it back on, so it didn't matter. I was 27 years old, and I didn't care.
Okay.
You know, so if I got in trouble, I got in trouble.
So, you used the card at Waterfront? Does that sound about right? Did you attempt to get money from Western Union? Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I showed you this, all these transactions, does it look like something that you... Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is from a credit card that you located inside of Frank's house? Okay.
Brandon was very open to speaking with me about things. He felt that the statute of limitations on the credit card use was an issue, so he admitted to me that he stolen a credit card from Frank Halcars and he used them at all those locations.
Around that time period, were you asked to leave by Frank or the police?
They come by one night, we had it. I stole the gun.
Okay.
The gun that was dropped.
Did he ask you to leave the house that day?
No.
Were you asking Frank for money around that time period? Because I have a report that said you did. That's what Frank said. We know you used the card at all these places. Okay. Frank's wallet was taken from him at some point. We know that for a fact. I know his cards were removed from his wallet. I know you and Frank weren't on the best terms. The person that had a problem with Frank was you.
I'm not stupid. That's the worst thing to do. Is if I'm going to kill somebody, I'm going to kill him right after I'm using some credit card and stuff, so it makes it look like I did it. I see why you're wanting to come after me, but that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Tell me about your relationship. And what would she have to say about you?
Everything negative. She's trying to keep me behind bars for the rest of my life. So.
She stated that
You said you've killed 4 people before, and she could be number 5. Did you ever make that statement in a heat of passion to her, or a reason why she would say that?
Brandon seemed to discredit any witness that I spoke with. Every time I would bring up one of those witnesses, he would just paint a bad picture of them, which is typical behavior in someone that is, you know, a suspect in a case.
All right, that's all I got.
I feel pretty great that we can get some closure to this.
Yes, sir.
He admitted to using the credit card.
So.
Really?
Yeah, he stated he used it, but his claim was
that he retrieved the cards from inside of the residence. He said that Frank just had cards lying around inside of the residence, and I even showed him the printout of what we had, and he pretty much said, yeah, I use them in all these places.
Oh my God, that's great.
We had a 1-2 punch today. We talked to an amazing witness. He has this huge realization that this guy is using this murder victim's credit cards. In the meantime, you've got Brandon Scroggin in prison, and he's confirming all of these things as well.
Truly, that might be the best luck we've ever had, talking to a suspect. Whew.
I just think it's so awesome yesterday that the interview with our witness was unfolding at the same time as the interview with Brandon, and they were matching.
I'm glad he's so smart, aren't you? Talking about the credit cards.
Seriously, I mean, you couldn't have a more sympathetic victim. You couldn't have a less sympathetic suspect.
We had a great day yesterday, so now we're ready to review and go over everything that we've uncovered in the 2007 murder of Frank Halkars. Woo, you better be feeling good today, right?
Oh, yeah.
My daughter called me last night and she goes, how'd it go today on your case, Mom? I said, we had a great day. And I told her each of your stories, and she's like, you don't have very many days like that. And I said, we sure do not. Tell me again how long y'all worked in Gary, Indiana, Captain.
About 11 years.
And you?
10.
Man, it shows. It shows. Y'all are great. At this point, we all feel that we have more than enough circumstantial evidence to present to the Lake County Prosecutor's Office in explaining who was responsible for killing Frank Halkars and who wasn't. Once upon a time, we put up there looking into unknown suspect. And now that we've talked to everybody, is there anything we need to correct or add with what we learned about this?
No, nothing at all. Once again, especially with the number of people that we talked with, the neighborhood kids thing not coming up from anybody else other than his VFW buddies. Do you remember any more detail about what he said the problems were with them?
No, I don't.
I mean, Frank didn't go around flashing money, right?
Oh, hell no.
I was picturing him as walking around town as like a smart-dressed man. Not
Right.
really.
Not flashy at all. Not anything that anyone would walk past the house and think, I'm going to go here and rob somebody.
Yeah. Pete, what do you think about unknown suspects still being up here on the board?
I don't think it's possible.
Captain, same?
Same.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take unknown suspect off the board. There might have been some rumors that Frank was having trouble with boys in the neighborhood. Is it reasonable to make that jump to they're the ones who killed him? Not with everything that we've learned, not at all. Okay, so let's start talking about Brandon. When you're going to sell your case to your prosecutor, what would you say to make them know Brandon Scroggin is responsible for killing Frank?
Brandon has a history of crime. Everyone we've talked to stated that he had no empathy. Frank asked him to leave days prior, so his return would obviously cause conflict with Frank.
Brandon stole his gun, his checkbook, and Frank said enough finally.
So Frank told you that directly, that he told Brandon to leave and that was enough?
Yes.
He's sitting there telling his ex-girlfriend, I would sneak up on people to rob them, hit them in the back of the head, and turn out their pockets.
That's your MO.
We would talk about going to the city and literally running up behind somebody and hitting them in the back of the head and then reaching in their pockets and taking whatever he could get, whether they were dead or alive.
She thought it was odd because when she got with Brandon, he made her Google this case. Let's say I was accused of something. I would say, hey, I just want you to see this before you find out later. And then I would go on to say, I had nothing to do with this or blah, blah, blah. She said Brandon didn't say anything.
Yeah.
He just said, I want you to see this.
Credit card use is major. We have him at that time that Frank was killed, and he's just having a heyday, using credit cards excessively. I handed him the paper, and I said, hey, does this look like everything you did? And he's like, oh, yeah.
If I showed you this, all these transactions, does it look like something that you... Okay.
I actually have a suggestion that I highly recommend, and your prosecutor will love you for it, is take the piece of paper that you showed him and tag it into evidence right now.
Okay.
But you're in court, you can say, do you have the piece of paper you showed him? Yep. Is this it? Yes, it is. How do you know? Here are my initials, and boom, you just proved it up.
Great idea.
And you will have just sidestepped about 3 witnesses that the prosecutor would have to call to prove it up otherwise.
This case shows that when everybody is united in what they think about the suspect, personality-wise and criminal history-wise and all the things he's done, and they cooperate and they're all still around and credible, look what you can do with the cold case. His own family is telling everything they can on him because they know that he ought to get in trouble for what he did.
It's really telling if you look at the picture of Frank Halcars at the age of 23. He is about to go off to war where he may not come back, and he's doing it out of a sense of duty. He is everything that 23-year-old Brandon Scroggin is not.
Ooh, good morning.
Good morning.
Perryman and Peak had their meeting with the prosecutor's office, and now we want to update Devin on everything they learned and all the progress that's been made with the case. He brought help today.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It went really well. Everybody that we talked to, we're super excited to know that the case is being worked on, and I think they're all going to feel good when they hear about this. These guys did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
He went and talked to Brandon.
Yeah, we spoke for about an hour and a half.
He didn't say a lot to help himself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We spoke with our prosecutors. We submitted everything, all the work that we did throughout the week, presenting charges for Brandon. We got a few more small details we got to button up.
Our prosecutor that we spoke with feels pretty confident. Okay, I didn't want to make any promises because other things can happen, but it was a very positive meeting.
I'm extremely grateful for them for this, for everything they've done. Knowing that we'll have some closure and justice for my grandpa, that's what matters. I'm at peace, happy, and relieved.
How do you think that's going to affect your family, your mom, and everybody?
I'm not really sure. I think justice is more important. For me, I can't speak for them. I'm sure some are going to be upset.
This is a great case. We're all excited to see where it goes from here because Frank Halcars was a great man. He served our country. He lived a long, full life. It was taken from him still too short. Give me a hug. And up until now, all his family could think about is, why does someone get away with murdering a man like that? But hopefully today, with all these answers,
It was nice meeting you.
You too.
they can finally switch that focus and appreciate that now they can finally get justice.